Hi there, it's Alexandra Harbushka here. I am the founder of Life With Herpes. It is a blog, it is a podcast, it's a YouTube channel, but most importantly, it is an online community for people living with herpes. So, if you haven't checked out Life With Herpes, if you haven't checked out the Secret Society, you gotta go do that. It is an online community filled with hundreds of people who are living with herpes. It is like an online forum, an ability to chat, talk, learn, heal, grow, answer questions, be an inspiration, a lot of cool stuff. So go check it out, come say hi, and just come say hi. All right, I wanna talk a little bit about some signs, some symptoms. Do they differ from men and women? So are the herpes outbreaks different for men than they would be for women? I've gotten that question a couple of times in our secret society. People are like, well, I get this sign or I get this symptom, and other people are like, well, I get this. And then they said, well, are they different for men and women, and how does that work? All right, so just to go through all this, everybody's a little different. We all have different triggers, we all have different symptoms. I like to compare it a little bit to, when you're getting a cold, so you specifically know your little triggers for a cold. So for you, it might be a runny nose. Like you get a little tingle in your nose and you're like, by 3 o'clock, it's a faucet. All right, I know I'm getting a cold. For me personally, it's a sore throat. If I wake up with a little sore throat, then I know immediately I'm gonna get a cold. End result, we both have colds, right? But we kind of know our signs, symptoms, our triggers, and so we kind of know how to prepare for it. But as here we're talking about men and we're talking about women. So does a man have a different trigger? Because obviously our genitals are a little bit different, right? Men and women have different anatomies. All right, so let me break down the symptoms that are here for herpes in general. So this is for both men and both women. And I am gonna read it because I don't wanna miss anything. I don't wanna leave something out off the top of my head. So there's blistery, there we go. Blistery sores, burning when you pee if you have open sores, trouble peeing if you have sores covering your urethra, itch or pain around your genitals. Some blisters can bleed. That's been a big question recently in our secret society is bleeding. Swollen, tender glands in the pelvic area, throat, or under your arms. That's a lot where your lymph nodes are, under your arms, kind of in here. Your throat can swell, and then in your genital area. Fever, chills, fatigue. That's a big one for me. Fatigue, headache. In general, you just feel run down. You basically feel achy and like you have the flu. So those are kind of that's like the umbrella, that's the overhead. Like I said, everyone's a little bit different. I personally don't get itchy. I don't get the chills. I don't get a fever, but I do get little headaches. I do feel run down, and I do have swollen lymph nodes, and I'm just beyond exhausted. So those are my signs and symptoms when I know I'm getting an outbreak. Okay, what does herpes look like? This is another question because I get people send me pictures, or people will post pictures in our group and say, is this herpes, or has it moved to my arm, and things like that. So let's talk about what it looks like. So the sores can be single or in a cluster. Everyone's a little different. Different outbreaks are different. So in one outbreak, you might just get one sore, and then later on, in the next 6 months, you might get a second outbreak, and it might be in clusters. Again, it's just how it shows up. They can look like little paper cuts. So they are a lot of times misdiagnosed because they look like paper cuts, and they'll think, well, that's not a sore. It doesn't look like a zit. It looks like a paper cut. No, they do look like paper cuts too. They are filled with fluid, and the fluid is usually like liquidy. So it's not fluid like a pimple. It's fluid that's like a blister. If you rubbed your shoe, you get blisters on your shoe and it's filled with liquid, it's kind of like that. And then they're also really hard to pop. So you don't pop them, just definitely don't, but they are really hard to pop. And when they do, they're extremely painful, unlike a pimple that is easy to pop, or again, like a blister on your foot from your shoe. Like those are pretty easy to pop, right? So that's what they look like. That's what they resemble. Okay, what should men look for? So as a man, what should you look for looking for herpes or if you have an outbreak. So typically in men, the herpes infection is on the penis or around the anus. So that's typically where it'll be for a man. And then for a woman, again, what should women look for? Is typically for women, it'll be clusters of blisterly, so I can't say that word, blisters, we'll just say blisters, sores that show up around your vulva, your cervix, and around your anus. The thing about showing up on your cervix is chances are you're not going to know it's on your cervix because our nerve endings are very different on our cervix than they are on the exterior of our body. So that would be during a diagnosis you would know, because there's like no way to like see them on your cervix unless you were a doctor and had like the whole like speculum thing and you're like in there. But there's no way you would see it unless you had a doctor diagnose you with that. Like I said, everyone's a little bit different. We all have different signs and symptoms. But remember, just because I mentioned for men, it's typically on the penis or the anus, doesn't mean that's always where it's going to be. It can show up, you know, it can show up on your legs, in between your legs, things like that as well. The same thing for women. Just because it is genital herpes doesn't mean it's just going to be right in your genitals. It can be on your buttocks, your ass, whatever you want to say. It can show up in different areas. All right. If you are wondering about your diagnosis, because a lot of times we don't know, and before I was diagnosed with herpes, I was freaking out hoping it wasn't herpes, even though that little thought in my mind was, oh, it could be because it's not normal. But if you have any questions or you're feeling different or you have some of these signs, these symptoms, these triggers, and you're wondering if it is herpes, I recommend you go to Herp Alert. It is your online diagnosis of on-call doctors waiting for you to help diagnose you and help get your pains, your symptoms taken care of. So go to herpalert.com, use the promo code Life With Herpes. You do receive 10% off. Awesome. Receive 10% off by using that promo code. All right, my friends, I'll see you all soon. I hope to see you in the Secret Society, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.